Hey there, everybody. I am Missy.
And I'm April.
And we're here with our new podcast,
Sheela Na Gig.
Hi, what's going on? Each week we present and explore our own Sheela Na Gig, a woman whose strength and perseverance led her to greatness, who empowers and inspires us, and maybe even someone who's, never really been acknowledged the way they should have been.
In fact, that tends to be our Sheelas, women who didn't quite get their proper due.
Yes, that's true. That is true. Yeah, a lot of these, we hope that, we're bringing these women to the masses. That's the idea here, that we're going to learn, we're learning about women we've never heard of before, and so are you. So it's kind of exciting. I think it's exciting. But how are you, April?
I'm good. I'm good.
You're good?
Yes, I am.
What's going on?
Open disclosure, she poured me some wine and I'm a cheap drunk.
She's a lightweight, it's true. April, for those of you who don't know April, she's very petite. So I did make her have some wine. Just
her. She poured it down my throat.
We're doing it a little later in the afternoon than we normally do.
Right.
This
right.
is
and we're celebrating our former editor Nolan.
Oh, yes.
Nolan's passing of a very important academic exam.
It's true.
And so we're celebrating with Nolan.
Yes, my son Nolan passed the high set reading exam today. And I knew he would, but it felt really good that he passed. And
so we're drinking to Nolan.
We're drinking to Nolan. Yeah, we are.
But tell us about our Sheela for the week.
I have to see if there's anything else I want to tell you. Oh, Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, Happy Mother's Day. That was yesterday.
I recently read about the woman who invented Mother's Day.
You did?
I did. Her last name, I think, was Jarvis. Her last name was Jarvis. And it was interesting because she never was a mother herself, but she really bent over backwards to create this holiday for women. And it just, I just learned about it. But what was sad is, like, she really went out of her way to create this Mother's Day holiday, but then when it got, taken over by the man, taken over by, mass
commercialization.
Yes, mass commercialization.
Blame that on men, but
yes. She tried to get it yanked.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Unsuccessful.
Well, in that vein, my son handed me a card, and it was a beautiful card, but it was blank on the inside, and he wrote his own sentiment. And he said, "I'm sorry I didn't buy you a real Mother's Day card, but I couldn't find one that I really liked." And I said to him, Sam, I would so much rather have your sentiment than Hallmark's.
Aww.
And so let's hear it for the non-commercialized version of Mother's Day.
What was his sentiment?
Oh, he said something about thank you for all that you do for me, and I love you. And
that's so sweet.
Yeah, it was. I loved
so
it.
Sweet. My daughter Ellery made pancakes for Grandma and I yesterday. Aww. They were heart-shaped pancakes.
Oh,
yeah, and it was really sweet. So when I woke up in the morning, I got heart-shaped pancakes.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And while we're bragging on our kids, my 20-year-old, she was out partying till 5 o'clock last night. At 5 o'clock in the morning on the night before Mother's Day.
Saturday, yeah.
And she got up at 11 o'clock to meet us for brunch.
Oh, what a gal, huh?
And I appreciated her dedication to showing up for Mom because I could tell she really needed to sleep. And she had to be at work at 4 o'clock.
Oh.
So, yeah, my little party animal.
She's always a party animal, but she, well, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, April,
yes, I'm such a partier.
You're a little party animal.
Anyway, tell us about our show. Rescue me now.
Okay, everybody. Here's my Sheela today.
We're waiting with bated breath.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, the pressure's on.
Yep.
Okay. In her time, Margaret Eloise Knight was called the most famous woman inventor. But today, chances are you've probably never even heard of her. I hadn't heard of her.
I hadn't heard of her.
No, that's what I'm talking about here. It's unfortunate because if you do any grocery shopping, you have her to thank for making it so much easier. Her invention created a product that is as unassuming as it is ubiquitous.
Isn't it a great word?
It is a great word.
Ubiquitous. It's my favorite word. Ubiquitous, for those of you who don't know the word, means it's everywhere.
Right.
I love saying it.
Do you know what that invention is?
I do, but I'm going to feign ignorance.
Well,
only because I cheated and
I should say, I'm going to reiterate, her invention created a product. So it's not something that she created, but she created an invention that was able to mass produce these in an awesome way. And they are the square bottom paper bag.
Woo! The square bottom paper bag. Where would we be without it?
Really? Where would we be without it?
I don't know.
Think about it. Think about it.
Okay, so we live in California, right?
We do.
We have cars. Everybody has a car. Cars are ubiquitous. Speaking of the word ubiquitous.
There you go.
But I grew up in New York, and most of us didn't have cars. We had shopping carts. And if we didn't have shopping bags to put in the carts, we could never get our groceries home.
Right.
And so shopping bags are an important part of my heritage, my New York heritage.
See, okay, there you go.
And even though in California we pick up our shopping bags and stick them in our cars, they were even more important sticking it in your cart, because getting home without that bag and cart was not going to be successful.
So let me just ask for a second. When you say a cart, you had your own cart that you took with you, like you took it on the subway and you fold it up kind of thing, and then you open it up when you get to the...
And my kids, when they saw I bought a shopping cart here in California, my kids were so embarrassed that I would take that out on the street. But everybody took their carts out on the street.
Well, you'd have to, right?
Yeah.
And so then you fill it up, and then you get back on the subway, and it's a full cart.
Yep. Or actually, in New York, we had neighborhoods. These things called neighborhoods. You would just wheel.
We don't have those in California.
I know.
Neighborhoods?
And you would wheel your cart to your apartment building, and it was in the neighborhood. It was a few blocks away. Maybe you had to take a bus, but we didn't. We had within 2 blocks our apartment, and we just wheeled it up there. So I know I never took my shopping cart on the subway, but I suppose you could, and I have seen people, and they weren't homeless.
Right.
Shopping carts for people who aren't even homeless.
And in that shopping cart, you need those square bottom shopping bags.
100%.
There you go, right? And that's what we're talking about today. The square bottom paper bag.
So fill us in. Tell me more.
Okay. During her lifetime, Margaret Knight, as a woman inventor during the late 19th and early 20th century, she overcame a surprising amount of adversity to achieve both her goals and the recognition that she deserved at a time when few women held intellectual property.
Okay.
Yeah, she was kind of amazing. She was born in York, Maine on February 14th, Valentine's. She was a Valentine's baby. 1838. She was born to James Knight and Hannah Teal. And she also had 2 older brothers, Charlie and Jim. Mm-hmm. And as a child, she was known as Maddie. And she enjoyed working with her hands from a really early age. She was kind of obsessed with her dad's toolbox. She had this little notebook that she would carry around everywhere she went that said "My Inventions" on it.
Oh,
I know.
that's great.
I know. I love her already. Huh. And she could make almost anything. She would make blueprints. She would draw things out. And, nobody knew really where she got it. It's almost like she was just born with this gift.
Really? Nobody taught her that?
Not really, no. Huh, I mean, her dad had a toolbox, but he wasn't making stuff all the time. And she just always wanted to make stuff. And including she made toys for her brothers.
Wow.
Her older brothers.
Uh-huh.
She would make toys, and then she would make sleds, and she would make kites for all the neighborhood kids.
Wow.
So
she must have been popular.
I think she was popular.
I would think so.
I think she was, yeah. And she even made a foot warmer for her parents.
Wow.
A foot warmer.
That's impressive.
Invented a foot warmer. You think about inventing it. I wouldn't even know how to start inventing a foot warmer. Where would you even start?
With something to put your feet in, but I don't know how to make them warm.
Yeah, I don't even know how to,
That's impressive.
And she's a young child at this time, too. She is a young child. So, anyway, she was always woodworking and using tools instead of dolls. And she was actually quoted as saying, "Dolls never possessed any charms for me. Instead, the only things that she wanted were a jackknife, a gimlet, and pieces of wood."
Doesn't every child want a jackknife, gimlet, and pieces of wood?
That's all she wanted, April.
What's a gimlet? I don't even know.
It's a good question. Why don't you look that up while we let's look up the gimlet
Okay,
while we move
you
forward.
talk, I'll look.
I should have looked that up. But yeah. So her friends in Maine were amused and even slightly horrified by her deep interest in tools. She was pretty obsessed.
Oh, okay. So my first answer is not accurate.
It's a cocktail.
The gimlet is a cocktail.
I love gimlet. It's a gin gimlet. There's nothing like it.
Right.
But what is the gimlet, the tool? Let's look that up.
Okay, I'll keep going. Keep talking.
Okay. So, this is kind of sad.
Yeah.
So, Knight only attended school until the age of 12.
What?
Mm-hmm. And that's when her father unexpectedly died.
Oh.
And at this time, the family, what?
Okay, sets of gimlets. They are a hand tool for drilling small holes, mainly in wood, without splitting. It's a hand tool.
And they make little holes.
For small tools, yes.
Got it. Okay. I should have looked that up ahead of time.
That's okay.
Anyway,
it's not a cocktail.
It's not a cocktail. Yeah, I love the gimlet, but now it has a double meaning for me. So
yeah,
it's also Margaret Knight's favorite tool. So
love it.
Yeah. They should start serving the gimlet with a gimlet. They could put an olive.
You could get drunk, and then when you get angry, you can carry out your
aggression with the gimlet.
Exactly.
No, I'm thinking though, if it's something that it obviously has a sharp end, it pokes little holes. You could put an olive on it. You could put a lime on it. You could put it in your gimlet cocktail.
Better move on.
Okay, I'm just saying it's the double gimlet.
Okay.
That's I'm all about that.
All right.
Maybe we can serve that at our lunch. Okay. Anyway. So her dad unexpectedly died. She was 12. She had to drop out of school. And the family moves to New Hampshire. And here, Knight begins working long hours in a cotton mill.
Oh, no.
I know, alongside her two brothers.
That's so sad.
Yeah, because they had to support their widowed mother.
Oh.
And this was kind of what happened during those days. That is a very common tale. That is what happened, a parent dies, you have to support the family, you don't get to go to school anymore, you have to work in the mill.
It's all over.
Yeah. So, and, of course, mills were notoriously dangerous, and they had poor conditions, and a lack of safety standards. And it wasn't long before Knight witnessed a serious accident caused by a malfunctioning loom.
Oh, no.
I know.
Happened?
So, propelled by her desire to help, the mechanically minded Knight set out to fix this, and she invented a shuttle restraint system and stop-motion device that could be used in textile mills to shut down machinery, preventing workers from being injured.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, so in other words, the loom would be working, but if something malfunctioned, it would immediately shut down so that nobody would get hurt.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and that became a standard fixture in looms across the country.
Whoa.
All these looms were like, wait, what is this?
Uh-huh.
And they all started using that same thing.
So did she get any credit and
no,
recognition?
she was 13 at the time.
13, of course.
So at such a young age, she was kind of unaware of the patent system, and she didn't receive any compensation for her efforts.
Of course not.
No, of course not. Right?
Right. What was I thinking?
I know. What were you thinking,
What
April?
were we thinking?
I know. So health problems, unfortunately, precluded Knight from continuing to work at the cotton mill.
Or maybe that's a good thing. Tell me she got to do something better.
Well, I think it did force her to move on in her life.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it was getting harder for her to breathe in there. There were a lot of issues.
Yeah,
and
I can't be too sorry about her having to lose that job.
Yeah, and then in her late teens and into her 20s, she held several jobs, ranging from home repairs, upholstery, and photography. So she did a lot of different things. And as an adult after the Civil War, she went to work at the Columbia Burlap Bag Company that is located in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Just a word about Springfield, Massachusetts.
Yes,
just
please.
A word, because it's kind of interesting.
Just give us a word.
So, my aunt and uncle lived in West Springfield, Massachusetts. So, I've spent quite a bit of time over there. And when I met my husband, Mike, we were chatting, and he says, "Oh, my dad is from Springfield, Massachusetts." What? And my family lives? And so, the first time we ever went out there together, once we became a couple, years later, we found out that our aunts lived 2 blocks apart.
Wow, very
They didn't know each other. But you could literally just walk from one aunt to the other aunt.
I bet they passed each other without
ever
knowing it.
I think they did. Yeah. So it was kind of interesting when we went to visit. We could visit his family and my family right there in Springfield, Mass.
Yes.
And so again, she went to work in Springfield, Mass. at the Columbia Burlap Bag Company.
And I could see what's coming next.
You can?
Yeah, sort of.
Well, kind of, yeah.
Go ahead.
So there, she noticed that the envelope-shaped bags were narrow, weak, and lacked a sturdy base to facilitate packing.
She is such a badass.
I know, she
How
is.
old was she?
Well, at this time, she's in her early 20s, late teens, early 20s, when
Okay.
she started working at the bag company. I'm really self-conscious about saying the word bag. Because my friend Danny always makes fun of my Midwest accent, and she's always like, "Oh, the bags." Oh, was it in a bag, Missy? So
you're doing a very good job of saying the word bag.
Okay, bag.
Bag.
Bag. Okay.
Go ahead.
So anyway, yeah, she noticed that these were not really conducive, right? Right.
Yep.
And she recognized that a flat, square bottom shaped bag was much more practical and sturdy. And yet, at the same time, these were considered artisanal items. They were not easy to come by in common life. They had been invented. Mm-hmm. Actually, a fella in England invented the bag, but there was no way to mass produce them. They had to be made by hand, and they were time consuming. And even though they were very practical, the time it took to make them wasn't really worth. So again, they were considered artisan, and
I'm sure they were expensive.
And they were expensive. They were. And so, she decided, she would make bags occasionally, the flat bottom bags, and she said it was like the most boring thing on earth.
Wow.
They would have to, each fold, it really wasn't practical. It wasn't practical. Such a great idea, but so impractical.
Right.
So, she realized that she wanted to come up with like a way to create a machine, a process of that a machine could use to make these flat bottom bags.
To mass produce it.
Wow. If she could come up with some kind of machine that could fold these bags, that could get them, made in large quantities in a timely fashion.
So back up. This young lady never went to when did she leave school?
12 years old.
She was 12 years old. She never had the benefit of a scientific background. She didn't really work in manufacturing at like a...
She's a full-on engineer without an engineer backing.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that so succinctly. Yes.
I mean, really, you think about it.
Who thinks that way?
Obviously, she was gifted and brilliant and amazing.
Yeah.
She was just singularly obsessed, as I said before, with making things.
With bags.
With bags.
With
making bags. But yeah, with constantly improving things. What can I do to help? How can I fix this? How can I create an invention for this? That was amazing. The way her mind worked. Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank God for her. So, of course, she started working on a machine that could make these flat bottom bags. And we're talking about those flat bottom bags that are still used, the exact bags that we are using today. We have not even changed those.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, it's the same. It's
like the technology has advanced?
Well, it has advanced, but the
basic concept?
The concept of it has not really changed.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. All right.
So she eventually put together this wooden model that she could use to test her plan. And she saw that it worked well, and she knew at this point that she wanted to apply for a patent. And she worked really hard on this model. Like, she made it out of iron, and she took that project to a machinist in Boston and explained how she wanted it built, along with her blueprints. And then she ended up collaborating with the machinist to make an iron prototype that she knew would function correctly, the way she wanted and needed it to function, in order to make these bags quickly, efficiently, cost effectively. So it was very exciting.
Yeah.
And so she relocated to Boston, actually, to perfect the innovation.
Well, I love Boston.
Boston is a great city.
I know. I went to school there as an undergraduate.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah.
Did you eat a lot of cannolis in the North End?
Yes, I did.
I love the
North
North
End. Yes, that's the Italian section, and it was just the best friggin' bakeries that exist on the planet.
I agree.
And it just feels like you're going back in time. I love Boston because it just felt like you're going back in time. There was so much history there.
So much history. I remember really being excited because I went with my mom. I think I was in high school at the time. I went with my mom And I was really excited to see all the historical like landmarks and things.
Yeah.
Although it was a little weird because it would be, you know, in the middle of a street, there'd be like one little, you know, island in the street where like, oh, this is where Paul Revere, you know,
Yes.
whatever, you know.
There are a lot of historical sites, yeah, but we are totally digressing. Let's look at back to
But
your
it's okay.
Sheela.
We're allowed to digress because I want to also say that I have two things to say about Boston.
Yes.
When I was a little girl, we went to Boston for my first time. We went with my dad there, and it was Easter. I remember it was Easter. And we were in the airport, and I had my little Easter dress on, and I had my little pin from the airline, like the first time I flew or whatever. And there was this man walking along, and he was wearing kind of a robe, and there were all these cameras, and I was like, what's going on? And he came right up to me, and he said, what's a little girl like you doing without candy on Easter?
Aww.
He was Bishop Sheen,
Oh,
who was
my.
quite known, especially among the Catholics.
Yes.
Parents were the Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
And he did some kind of very famous broadcast, and these cameras like followed me. He took me by the hand. He took me into the candy, like just the regular.
That's a big deal.
It was.
Yeah.
And I remember he had me fill up this giant bag of candy.
Wow.
And then, you know, he was like, make sure to share it with your brothers and sisters. And I remember being like, well, can I put more? No, put more in there. And I just kept filling it up. I couldn't believe it. I had the largest bag. Like, in fact, I think it was a square bottom grocery bag. I really do. It was full of candy. And he wanted me to share it with my siblings. I said I would. And then he got down in the airport on one knee and he blessed me.
Oh,
in the airport.
That's beautiful.
And it made like it made like the news. Like it was like it made the news.
Lucy, I never knew this story.
Yeah, it made the news. It might have made the paper.
Wow.
It was a big deal.
We have to look that up.
Because I remember like on the trip at one point somebody recognized me. You're the little girl who was on the, like.
How great.
And I was probably 4. I was very young, but I remember it so well.
Wow.
And then the other thing I remember about that trip, though, is my sister, like we were by Plymouth Rock, and my sister, like who's always been like really rebellious, she's like trying to like hike down.
Your sister Jenna.
Jenna, yeah.
Right?
Jenna's trying to like hike down to Plymouth Rock, like close. I don't know what happened. Anyway, she ended up like slipping and she broke her wrist.
Aww.
So then my mom told everybody, yeah, she broke her wrist on Plymouth Rock. My mom was kind of dramatic.
Claim to fame.
Yeah, Jenna broke her wrist on Plymouth Rock.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I got to quickly tell you my Boston story, and then I'll let you continue.
No, I love it.
I was an undergraduate at Emerson College, and when I was going to Emerson, the school was located in Back Bay in the old brownstone buildings that overlook the Charles River. And these were at one time beautiful mansions, and some of the buildings had like floor-to-ceiling windows and these huge chandeliers and these parquet floors, and that overlooked the Charles River, and it was just so breathtakingly beautiful. And the back stairwell was for the help, like upstairs, downstairs. Remember that?
Yeah.
You know? And then the elegant stairwell in the main, and this is where I went to school.
It's amazing.
I know. Now, since then, Emerson moved to the theater district, so they relocated those buildings. But I always felt so privileged to be in those buildings, and you could feel the history as you're walking through the hallways. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, and they kept so much of the original
I forgot that you went to
structures.
Emerson. That's so cool.
Yeah, I love Boston. Okay, now that we've totally diverted from our Sheela, let's go back.
Let me see if there's any other Boston stories.
No, we can't tell Boston stories. We got to go back to our Sheela. What happened to our Sheela?
That's a Toronto story. Okay, anyway.
Tell her, Sheela.
Where were we?
we?
Okay, so I was talking about how she worked with this machinist in Boston.
Yes.
She moved to Boston.
Yes.
She quit her job at the burlap bag company.
Yeah.
And she moved to Boston just, to work on this project. She was very good from my understanding about like saving her money. So she would work really hard. She would save her money. And so she had saved up some money in that she could quit this other job, move to Boston so that she could realize her vision of creating this machine to create these bags.
All right.
And that's what she did. And it took a few months for it to be ready to file a patent application. She worked very quickly.
Wow.
She didn't sleep. I mean, she worked round the clock. That's how she was.
She was obsessed.
She was obsessed.
Yeah.
She was. From what I can gather, she would start working on a project and she wouldn't stop till it was done.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So once complete, she excitedly applied for her patent.
And? Uh-oh.
However, soon, Knight discovered that one of her machine shop co-workers, a certain Charles Annan, had stolen the device himself.
Oh, no.
Beat her to the punch.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and they often kind of worked together, and he would kind of,
he figured out he could write on her coat strings and take all the credit.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh,
she would kind of, like, on her off time be working on it in her book, and he would kind of say, like, oh, what are you working on? Oh,
and
what?
she didn't realize.
Yeah, and there he was, just plotting.
He stole it. Oh,
completely.
My God.
So this turned out to be extremely ill-advised. As Knight, who spent $100 every day in legal expenditures for the 16-day hearing, handed Annan a humiliating courtroom drubbing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
She took him to court?
She took him to court.
And
she didn't mess around. Remember I said she was good about saving up her money?
Yeah.
So when I say, so we're talking about 16 days long.
Yep.
$100 a day.
Yeah.
So that would be what? $1,600, right?
Right.
No, and so in today's money, that would be close to $3,000 a day.
Wow. Holy mackerel.
So we're talking a huge chunk of money.
A lot of money.
But she wasn't going to let it go.
Good for her.
She wasn't going to let it go.
So what happened?
So in response to his bigoted argument that no woman could be capable of designing such a machine, she showed that
she did.
Absolutely I could. And she showed all her blueprints. She showed all her work. She brought in the machinist. And he had absolutely nothing.
You're making my day.
No ground to stand on. Nothing.
Oh, good.
The only thing he kept saying is like, oh, well, a woman couldn't be capable of designing such a machine. Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, well, here you go.
And she had all the background.
And she had everything.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So she prevailed.
Yeah. Yay. So she presented her original, meticulously detailed hand-drawn blueprints. She even presented diary entries that proved how long she had worked on the machine. Wow. And how committed she was to it and just figuring things out on paper. And then, of course, Annan, who had no evidence to offer himself, was quickly found to be a fraud and a money-grubbing charlatan.
Yay!
Yay!
All right! Justice prevailed.
I like that. And a money-grubbing charlatan.
Money-grubbing charlatan, yeah.
So after the dispute was resolved, Knight received her rightful patent in 1871 at the age of 32.
Oh, yay.
So it took a
took
little doing,
time, but
you
she
know.
did it.
Yep. So this was considered really an incredibly bold move for a woman in the 19th century, a time
say so.
When a vanishingly small percentage of patents were held by women, even allowing for those women who filed under male aliases or sex-neutral initials.
Wow.
So Margaret E. Knight had a functional wooden model to cut, fold, and glue the bags together, and only by turning a crank within 6 months of her first idea, it wasn't the most durable machine, but it produced almost 1,000 bags.
Woo! Very cool.
Yeah. And what's amazing is you can still see this exact machine in the Smithsonian.
I love it.
I want to go.
Oh, my God.
We got to take a field trip and go there.
You know, Steve and I, my husband and I, are planning to go to the Smithsonian's in October.
Woo!
Yeah, you want to come?
I would love to. You have to go take a picture for me.
Yeah, I will.
I gotta save up. I've got to save up for my Philippines trip.
That's right.
In December.
You want to go to the Philippines.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I understand.
So right after that, Queen Victoria decorated her with the Royal Legion of Honor that same year, as flat-bottomed paper bags had quickly spread across the world.
Of course
because they could spread because they were suddenly plentiful, whereas they had been this, artisanal item before, and now they were plentiful.
And now they are ubiquitous.
There you go, ubiquitous.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. So shortly thereafter, Knight founded the Eastern Paper Bag Company in Hartford, Connecticut, with a Massachusetts business partner, and received royalties. Woo. There, Knight encountered some resistance to her as a woman, but as she proved her complete understanding of manufacturing and the machinery, she won the workers' respect.
I love it. That's great.
I know.
That's so uplifting.
I know, isn't it?
Yeah, and even though I'm sorry she had to go through that horrible court case and spend all that money, I'm so glad she had the means to prevail, and she just...
And a lot of women wouldn't have done it.
No.
A lot of women would have just sucked it up and been like, oh, well.
Yeah,
but
good
she didn't.
for her.
She
That's
was like, no
awesome.
way. No way. And
Love
you know what?
it.
I've saved up money, and this is where I want to spend my money, and it's going to be worth it to me.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm going to do.
All right.
I love it. Yes. We love Margaret Knight.
We do.
Okay. So she acquired 2 more patents later on as she made improvements to her industrial origami bag making device that allowed the machine to work more efficiently and allow mass production of paper, fly bottom bags, vastly increasing the speed, quality, and consistency of their production.
Love it.
So as the years went by and she generated more and more such concepts, Knight came to see the money-making potential in her creativity.
Uh-huh.
She never married, as I said before, and she never had children. So devoting her life to inventing was her thing.
That's amazing.
That's all she
great.
said. She said,
Well,
this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to
awesome.
devote my life to inventing.
Go.
So she rented a space on High Street in Boston where she would run her experiments. And so it was basically like her little experiment hangout.
Her incubator.
Yeah.
I love it.
And she just rented the
That's
space
just great.
just so that she could go work on her inventions.
Wow.
It's like her invention space.
Huh.
And then she spent many, many long hours there. And so in her lifetime, she'd been referred to as the female Edison. And you're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
She, again, in her lifetime, she received some 87 patents to her credit. 27 of which are still well-known inventions today.
Wow.
And being used today.
Do you know what they are?
I will tell you some of them.
Oh, good.
Some of those inventions include machinery for cutting shoe soles.
Of course. Shoe soles.
Dress and skirt shield, which I need to look into a little bit more. I'm not sure what that means.
All
But
right.
clasp for robes.
Mm-hmm.
A spit for roasting meat.
Of course. We all need a good
A
spit for
numbering.
roasting meat. Yeah.
We do, apparently. Yes.
Uh-huh.
I'm a vegetarian. But.
I know.
A numbering machine.
Mm-hmm.
A window frame and sash.
Yeah.
A fire extinguisher.
Well, heck.
A skirt protector.
A skirt protector.
Which I think goes back to the dress and shield.
Thing that you
yeah.
need to look up. Okay.
A paper feeding machine.
Okay.
A sleeve valve engine.
Where would we be without our sleeve valve
It's
engine?
true. Oh, you'll find out. And a sewing machine reel. To name a few.
Okay.
To name a few.
To name a few.
Because we're talking about 27
That's pretty
that we're still
impressive.
using today.
Wow, she's a badass.
Total badass. I
love it.
can't even imagine.
No,
Like, what else did she do? I don't think she really did anything else.
that was a lot.
That's the key. I don't think she really did anything else.
You know, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled.
And so she successfully patented many of her inventions. However, it wasn't done with ease or without obstacles. And though she was in her 60s, when automobiles were coming into their own, she was fascinated by them.
I bet.
And that's when she patented a series of improvements to the rotary engine.
Of course.
Of course she did. Of course she did.
She did.
Of course she did.
What else would she be doing?
Between 1902 and 1915, her gasoline-powered engine was known as the Knight Silent Motor.
Ooh.
She also developed non-skiddable tires.
Huh. Mm-hmm. It's so funny because my son loves loud motors and skiddable tires.
He would not.
She obviously didn't appreciate the passions of a young adolescent or young man and his love of cars, but that's okay.
Perhaps not. Yeah. I just love, like, in her 60s, she was just like,
Yeah.
she's like a hot rodder.
Right?
You know? I love that.
Oh.
So
Great.
the implications of Knight's eventful life were addressed in widely read ink as early as 1913. And when the New York Times, they wrote an article about her, and they were talking about, you know, how refreshingly progressive women were becoming. And they ran a lengthy feature on women who are inventors with Knight as the headliner.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And, of course, they were rebutting the lingering notion that women weren't wired for innovation. And they said, quote, "The time has come now when men must look to their laurels, for the modern field is full of women inventors." And the author of the article called special attention to Knight, who at the time, at the age of 70, he said, was working 20 hours a day on her 89th invention.
Oh, gee.
Do you love that?
That's amazing.
Do you love that? She's
Yeah.
70 years old. She's working night and day on her 89th invention.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy, yeah.
But sadly,
Yeah.
though she overcame many barriers in the life of women in the 1800s and 1900s, she was deemed successful. It's true, but she was never able to profit from her inventions due to her gender.
Oh.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, unfortunately I can.
If she had been a man,
Yep, she'd probably be a millionaire.
she would have been a millionaire.
Multi-millionaire.
Because she was a woman, she was not.
Wow.
That
Well,
simple.
The one thing I do take pride in is the fact that she maintained her integrity to her science and her inventions,
Yeah.
and never gave up, and
Right.
continued to feed her soul, and
Yeah.
didn't feel like she had to marry, have children, or embrace convention. She embraced herself, and
Exactly.
that's a
She
beautiful
embraced
Sheela.
her. She did. It is a beautiful Sheila. She embraced herself and what she wanted to do. But another reason that Knight was dismissed often was because she wasn't wealthy and she was never highly educated.
Yeah.
So
Which only makes her more impressive to us.
yes. But only
Yeah.
makes her more like, not only was she a woman, she wasn't an educated woman.
Right.
She wasn't a wealthy woman.
All
Why should we credit her? Why
Oh.
should she gain this notoriety?
I'm so glad you found her.
I am too. So, and the other thing that's interesting about her,
Yeah.
she chose not to merely use her initials.
Yeah, she could have just copped out.
When she was making her inventions, not that there was very few women who were making inventions, but the women who were and receiving patents would often use initials.
Yeah.
Or even
Be
a pseudonym,
androgynous, yeah.
because they wanted the credit. They wanted to
Right.
gain the notoriety and perhaps profit off of it, which they knew they would not be able to do as a woman. She refused to do that.
Good for her.
She always put Margaret Eloise Knight
I love it.
on all of her inventions. On all of her patents, she elected to use her real name. However, this did not result in the breaking of the glass ceiling. And she said years later, she was quoted as saying, "I'm only sorry I couldn't have had as good a chance as a boy." Just such a bummer.
Yeah.
But although she did manage to live more comfortably in middle and old age than she did in childhood, so she did better than her own parents.
You mentioned she was a good saver.
Yeah, she was never rich by any means, but she did better than her parents did, and she did live on her own. She was able to support herself somewhat. She died alone with her achievements on October 12th, 1914 in Framingham, Massachusetts at the age of 76, leaving an estate worth only $275.05.
Oh,
Just under $7,000 by today's standards.
that's heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
27 patented inventions.
And considering we're still using many of them today.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
And $275.05.
Ugh.
It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But she was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2006.
Okay.
And a scaled down but fully functional patent model of her original bag making machine, of course, is in the Smithsonian Museum again, as I said earlier.
I will be taking photos.
Oh yes,
Yes.
You have to do that. Like, that's just, yeah. And no doubt many female inventors of the early 1900s and later were inspired by Knight's courageous example to better the world around them. But as a postscript to this narrative, it's also worth noting that even in contemporary America, where women have more positions of power in government than they did in the 1800s and have full property rights, they still account for less than 10% of principal inventor patent awards. An unquestionable result of long-standing discouraging norms.
Oh.
Yeah, that's sad, right?
It is sad.
Only 27,000 women were inventor patentees in 2017, even though that women occupied nearly 2 million research and engineering positions at that time.
Wow.
Men were 3 times more inclined than women to be inventor patentees in science and engineering jobs. Women inventors made up 13% of U.S. patent holders by 2019, as the number of counties with women patentees jumped by nearly a third over 3 decades, according to a new U.S. Patent and Trademark Office report. It is estimated, though, that only 17.7% of inventors named in international patent applications were women in 2023.
Wow.
I know.
You know, you think we've come so far, you think we've scaled so much, but really when you start looking at data like this, it's so disheartening.
It is disheartening. It is. And while numbers are rising, progress is slow.
Yes.
Progress is slow. Yep. And it is estimated that at current rates, parity among patent corporation treaty listed inventors will only be reached in 2077.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Wow.
That's a long time.
Yeah,
That's a long time to see any difference, you know?
Well,
yeah.
You know,
yeah.
this Sheela, Margaret Eloise Knight, certainly made a big kink in our history.
I know, she did. And then the New York Times, there's a New York Times piece, and it touched on another important facet of Knight's life. She'd established herself as a critical player in the early women's rights movement. Women were campaigning for suffrage, the right to vote. And Knight's achievements, especially since they were in the male sector of machinery, appeared to be the perfect rebuttal to allegations that women didn't deserve rights because they lacked the intellectual capacity of men.
Wow.
So she helped with that too.
Well, thank you, Margaret Eloise.
Yes, we love her. Maddie, as she was called by a child. I like Maddie. Yeah, and one little side note, which I thought was interesting, and I want to look into it a little bit more. So when you look her up, this stock photo immediately comes up of her. It's all over the internet, and there's even like drawings of her based on this stock photo. But there is some information out there to suggest that that is not her.
Really?
Yeah. There's another photo. There's one more photo that's not quite as common that you see of her with her machine. And I do think that's probably her.
I'm looking up her picture right now.
Oh, you're looking up her
picture?
picture?
Yes, of course.
I was like, wait, April.
Well, April,
I
what
lost
are you doing?
What are you doing?
No, I'm looking.
She's going down the rabbit hole. She's looking at her picture.
I'm looking at Margaret Knight's rabbit hole. Margaret.
Don't be looking at her rabbit hole. That is private.
It's photograph. She's quite lovely. At least this photo of her. Yeah.
She's quite lovely, right.
Yes.
But you look at that photo, now we're talking about the 1800s.
Right.
And a lot of people out there were suggesting, no, this is a photo from the 40s. This is a woman with like a typical 40s hairdo.
Yeah.
This is not a photo from the 1800s.
But there's another photo or illustration. Marvelous Maddie. How Margaret E. Knight became an inventor. And there's apparently some kind of publication about that.
Yeah. So that would be, I mean, again, this is something interesting that I just found.
But you're right. There is this one photo that is very 40-ish looking.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem correct in terms of like the context of the date, like that she was, creating things in the 1800s and into the 1900s. That's, let's see if we can look for Margaret Knight with her machine.
Oh,
because that might be,
Margaret Knight.
With her machine. That's another, but I think that photo is probably correct because she's a little bit older in that one. And definitely wearing like a period style dress in that one.
Uh-huh.
So that one to me is like, that's probably legitimate. That one is probably legitimate.
So we're suspicious of this ubiquitous photo.
Yes. And the other thing about that photo is apparently there's somebody else who fought like during wartime who was, and that her name was Margaret Knight. Mm-hmm. So this person who wrote an article about it basically said she thinks there is just it's just a mistake, and it's actually this person who fought in the war. I think maybe she was a nurse during the wartime, and her name was also Margaret Knight, and they just kind of glommed onto the wrong photo.
Well, what's interesting is there is a photo that says, "Thank inventor Margaret E. Knight for the paper bag," and in this photo she looks blonde and looks nothing like that.
See, that looks like a stock photo to me.
That looks like a stock
That's just a stock. There's a lot of stock photos out there.
Well, we just don't know, but...
We don't know, but this is worth, it's another little rabbit hole to pursue.
There's an obituary photo.
Interesting.
Yeah, she looks different there.
Yeah.
So, anyway...
If anybody's information that they want to share with us...
Well, I will be going to the Smithsonian.
That's true.
I'm sure, darling, we shall get some accurate images.
No, it's true. But, if anybody has information on that, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you anyway. Like, if you have some Sheelas to share with us, some stories to share with us.
Right.
Maybe, it's a chance, too. We're collecting a lot of information here. Maybe we didn't quite get the story right. Maybe you want to say, like, hey, I think it actually happened this way. Or,
Yes,
please.
we are definitely open to your feedback and edits.
Yes, we want to hear from you. We would love to hear from everybody, and we are so grateful for your listening. Thanks for joining us once again.
Yes.
We will hope to see you next time.
And until next time, please have a great, inspired life.
That's right. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Sheela Na Gig on a bed.